You're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. It's more fun to believe. Third year bonus. Hey everybody, thank you for listening to another third year bonus of Me and Paranormal You. This is your buddy Ryan Singer. I hope you're doing well. Happy Friday if you're listening to this on the day it comes out. I hope whatever day you're listening to this is a happy day. Like this left side of my face feels like it's so much bigger than the right side of my face. Or is that just an optical illusion? I feel like the older I've gotten, maybe it's because my beard grows weird, or maybe I've just got a lopsided face now that I'm older. Anyway, moving on. You can't all the episodes of the Mindcast are now available on YouTube. I've been posting them on Ryan Singer Comedy, or it's official Ryan Singer. You think I'd know that if I'm telling you to go listen to it. You think I know where to tell you to go listen. Sorry about that. I've got exciting news I want to talk to you about tonight. I've got some other discussions in the world of the paranormal that I think are going to be fun. I'm going to tease some upcoming guests as well. We've got some old friends returning to the program and hopefully some new friends. I've been, as you know, I binged Expedition Bigfoot. I was sleeping on that show. Man, was I sleeping on that show, or was I sleeping on that show? That's for sure. I was dead asleep on that show, but no longer. I finished the first 2 seasons. Great show. If you haven't checked it out, you should check it out. Hopefully we're going to be lining up some interviews in the very, very near future. Maybe with, some of the people. I've got a direct connection through a very good friend of mine who's really good friends with someone on that show. So we're working on that. So we're going to get some paranormal talk. Probably not, we want to talk about the paranormal stuff more than we do, the TV show, I think, when it comes to that chat. So I've been having many conversations over the last few days just on the telephone with some friends of mine, some who I've been in the field with in the past and I've worked on other projects with. The documentary that I'm working on about Poasttown, that will be a companion piece to the stand-up special that'll come out sometime here, not too far from now, hopefully in the near future this year, that we're tentatively calling The Supernatural. There's going to be a documentary that I'm working on. I've got friends working on different aspects of the editing and the post-production of that documentary. I've still got things to film in the future as well. I will be going back to Poasttown. I have a date reserved. I will be back at Poasttown next month in February doing some more investigation. My buddy Karen Rontowski and I believe we're going to be doing our darn best to be live streaming at least a large part of that investigation to people. I'll probably be live streaming it through my Instagram or through the YouTube. So, and Karen will be live streaming as well, I imagine. So keep your ears and eyes peeled for that. That'll be exciting. To give you a peek inside of Poasttown, that would be, I think, fun for people who find that location fascinating. And I'm sure we're going to get something on camera that is strange or weird or odd. It'll probably be mostly me being creeped out. So maybe that's entertaining as well. Speaking of documentaries of the paranormal nature, I finished Killer Alaskan Bigfoot season 1. It's available on Discovery Plus. Polly Wyram, who was a guest on the program a couple weeks ago, she was on episode 3 of that. She got flown in. She got choppered in as a psychic medium to try to help give them some answers. You can listen to that conversation. A couple weeks ago, that episode was posted. I finished it, and I'm not going to give you any spoilers, but I'm going to say this about that show. This is one of those shows where it's like, this is either the wildest thing I've ever seen, as far as like a paranormal documentary goes, and that's saying a lot, or it is the, craziest fabrication of something that I don't know where I stand in my final judgment of the first episode of that show. Whether they'll do a second episode, I'm not sure. I guess I could have just Googled it. But the, wow. I mean, I don't know what to say other than some wild stuff. So Juxtaposed against like a show like Expedition Bigfoot, a very different program, a totally different type of Bigfoot program in the way they approach the subject. I mean, it's a totally different story as well. It's a very specific, localized story, an Alaskan killer Bigfoot, and the name of the show is, pretty dramatic, right? We can all agree that Alaskan Killer Bigfoot is a dramatic title for a television program, if I've ever heard one. So moving on, I think these conversations I've been having in the last few days, I don't know what they're going to lead to, and I don't know where they're going to go, but it involves me traveling and, doing some more documentation. I have, trying not to let the cat out of the bag too much, but my buddy Ed Brown set up the Florida trip in the hopes of, compiling enough footage to make a documentary out of that location. Due to some unforeseen circumstances, once upon our arrival, we had cruise shortages that were unexpected that we didn't realize we had until we were there. Not everything went the way it was planned. So there was some great moments. There was a lot of, really, really fascinating, interesting experiences. One of them happened to be quite terrifying. Anyway, I'm talking to Ed the other day, and I was like, I'm putting together this documentary about Poasttown. And there's one point in the investigation of the school where Alex Mastretta and we were outside in this field by like the woods looking for something, because something that had happened the night before after doing a CE5. And as we're walking back into the school, everyone else was inside the school doing this gateway device that Eric Connor has developed. Really wild, crazy. It's like a spirit box on crack. That's what this gateway device is like. And we had walkie-talkies. I just love the use of walkie-talkies. And so on the walkie-talkie, as we're getting ready to walk back into the building, we get a message through the walkie-talkies that something has said, I'm in the field outside, come find me. And that's when I'm just like, no, I was just in the field. Like it's like my greatest fear coming to the surface here. And about a week and a half previous, I had been back in Florida at that location, spending the night just to hang out and catch up with Bill and Carolyn. The night went great. There was no strangeness. I slept. Everything was fine. I slept in the house, not in the sugar shack. I left the next day. Everything was hunky-dory. So I wanted to give some context to why I was terrified for the documentary, because, it is my hope that a lot of people will see this documentary that I put together, and that, I'm assuming most of them won't know the backstory and how I had this terrifying experience. Nonetheless, so I hit up Ed and I'm like, hey, listen, man, I want to use a lot of that footage for your project, for my project, if I can, like some of the footage that I was compiling. And because I found some of it on my computer that I thought I didn't realize I had. And so I was kind of looking through it the other day and I was like, oh, this is interesting. I want to use this. And so we're talking and he's like, yeah, man, you can use anything out of that whole footage that you want, which leads to, hey, man, I'm just going to send you everything I got. And when he said that, I was like, well, you let me put eyes on this bad boy. You let me put some eyes and some ears on everything we got, because it's Ed's idea is that there's not enough there to even put together something, in his opinion, from what he's been going through. And so I was like, well, let me put some eyes on it and let me see what I think. And potentially we'll see if we can't put something together that is Florida specific, just Florida. And so I'm very excited that I'm going to be getting all of that footage from Florida. I know people have been meshing me. They've been messaging me for over 2 years about, are we going to see anything from Florida? And I'm not saying that you will, but I am saying that there is a light at the end of that tunnel, potentially. There is a chance that something could come from that. And does it, it was always my thoughts that our trip to Florida in May of 2019, was it May of 2020? May of 2019. or 2020, 2019. Yeah, COVID times. I forgot the year. It was always my idea that was just the beginning of the footage that would need to be filmed for this documentary. It was part one, chapter one, and Ed and I hadn't caught up in the talked on the phone had a long conversation in a while. So he's like, you know what, I agree with that, and I was like, it feels to me like we have to go back, and even saying it here now, I can't believe I'm saying that out loud, that we have to go back and try to film. And I don't know if that's ever going to happen. First of all, that's people's home, So first and foremost, you have to make sure that the people who actually live there, are comfortable with you doing that, et cetera, et cetera. Lots and lots of hoops to jump through. But just when, it's the project that is not dead, seemingly, I'm going to have all of that footage. I imagine here in a few weeks. So in a few weeks' time, I'm going to have all of that footage. Now, meanwhile, I'm trying to, edit and put together my own documentary. Has a ton of footage. So do I have time to think I'm going to edit together a different documentary about the Florida trip? No, I'm not saying that. But at the very least, I'm going to put because I have no idea about what footage was captured and what footage was not captured. There is some really compelling pieces of evidence from that investigation that, it's definitely the most amount of evidence or, trace evidence, circumstantial evidence, etc., that I've ever been a part of when it comes to, and it's also the longest expedition I've been on. It was a 5-day research trip, an investigation. So I can't wait. And there was a lot of creepy EVP type weird audio stuff also that happened. So I'm looking forward to being able to, potentially share that, or at least a tiny bit of it with you. And I'll probably be able to share a little bit more over on the Patreon page, just because we don't want this going being broadcast. Like if in fact this does turn into a project, or, something that we, gets put out later, we don't want to just give away, put out everything in advance. But there'll definitely be some sneak peeks, 100% sneak peeks, and probably 200% sneak peeks over on the Patreon page, patreon.com/Ryan Singer. You can check that out. I've got a couple new levels over there. They are explained. The different tiers are explained. There's a new $11 and a new $20 tier. So I wanted to let you know that, because I was like a kid in a candy store last night. I barely could sleep upon the conclusions of these conversations, and actually was on the phone with another Dan Lindholm, who was there in Florida, talking about something unrelated at first, but then obviously it went back to Florida, and who knows? I mean, everybody's ready to get the band back together. I mean, I know that for a fact. There's nobody who's interested in the paranormal, especially investigating the paranormal, that is not interested in, once they've been to this location, in going back to that location. It is 100% a place you want to go back to, even if it takes you a few years after having the shit scared out of you. I definitely want to go back. I mean, there's so much happening there. The likelihood of being able to catch some of that on camera is it's so compelling, and it's so intriguing that it feels like only a fool would pass up the opportunity if presented to them. And I mean, I'm a fool in I've been a fool. I currently am a fool. But, every once in a while, I'm able to bypass the foolish way and see the light. And so this is one of those situations. But I'm so damn excited about it. I can't stop thinking about it. And, I'd be lying if I said it wasn't terrifying at the same time, because it 100% is a little bit terrifying simultaneously as it is exciting. But I mean, isn't that what the paranormal is all about? Being terrified and excited at times, simultaneously. Those two things are not exclusive from one another. You can feel those simultaneously. Um, I'm on a kick to try to read 4 books a month. I mean, that's a high order. I've already got 3 down this month. I just read a book called Dead Serious by my buddy Michael Malone. He's a comedian. It's a very dark, very funny memoir / journal, peek into his journal. I gobbled this book up. You should definitely check that out, michaelmalonecomedy.com. You can check out that book. Michael and I have known each other since way back because he's originally out of the Columbus, Ohio area for comedy, and I was Dayton, so our scenes overlapped. What a great book. I mean, very touching, a very touching, emotional, and also funny book. I can't recommend it enough. I think you'd enjoy that. What else did I finish? I finished David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell, which is a very interesting book about the misconceptions of the underdog, how David was not really an underdog. If you knew anything about the warfare of the time and et cetera, you'd understand that David, in fact, would have been favored in Vegas come that fight with Goliath, which is actually, allegedly a historical account of a battle that was happening. But the David and Goliath thing rings true for me when it comes to the paranormal. The paranormal is David, and the mainstream scientific world is Goliath. And I think that David doesn't realize that he's not, the paranormal is not an underdog. The paranormal versus mainstream science. We're not an underdog. Even though we perceive ourselves that way, trying to be embraced or trying to be understood or accepted by the mainstream scientific community. And I don't think we need to be, first of all. And the beautiful thing about being the underdog is you can work outside of the system. You can, you have a freedom of movement. You have a freedom of thought. You have a freedom of ideas that don't exist inside of a rigid system. That's what's beautiful about the paranormal. There is definitely freedom there. That freedom leads to some other things that aren't necessarily beneficial to the movement of the paranormal forward into everyone's mind as just being part of life or being normal. But with that freedom, you have to accept some of these other things. That seems logical to me that we can accept that. There's brilliance in the weirdo or the outsider, the outcast. Oftentimes they are pushing the rest of the field forward in whatever it is, whether it's writing, science, all kinds of things, art especially. And science fiction, has done so much to inspire young people to later become scientists. And, sometimes we say that, like we're living in a science fiction movie, and it really is because science fiction has inspired so much innovation and so many inventions. Things have come to life off the pages of books from the imaginative minds of scientists that were maybe first stoked. That flame of curiosity and creativity was set by these science fiction writers who, where'd they get their ideas from? I don't know, but we can thank the muse many times. So I don't think it's beneficial to be looking at ourselves, those of us who are really interested and fascinated in the paranormal, as underdogs. I believe it's more beneficial to be looking at ourselves as free thinkers, outside the box, outcasts. That's a role I've somewhat always been drawn to. I've been outside of the mainstream stand-up comedy world for most of my career. I dip my toe in there every once in a while, and honestly, that's where the freedom is, and there's no rules. I'm allowed to perform the kind of comedy that I really want without the expectations of I need to fit into this box. So it's very exciting in that way. So to me, it doesn't have any real negative connotations when it comes to being considered an outcast or an outsider. I feel like it's a beautiful way to go about one's craft because of the freedom that it allows. The paranormal world is that. Now, there is definitely a structure of paranormal investigation that is being built over the years. There is a certain way of doing things that people have adopted in the majority, right? Because of what they've seen done and what has been shown to us as being done as paranormal investigations. So we adopt many of those things collectively as a group and consider this is the way it should be done. Same thing could be said for, squatching or, any other kind of investigation in the paranormal field. Now, not all of us, have the wherewithal, the dedication, or the focus to be able to go get a doctorate degree or study parapsychology and, be confined to the lab environment. I just never really been able to see myself like working in a lab necessarily. That seems a little too restrictive to me, just in my personality type. But thankfully, there are people who love doing that. Now, where was I? What was I saying? What was I talking about? See, this freedom sometimes leads to a loss of train. Your train, it turns into a ghost train. I have a ghost train of thought. But I do believe that when it comes to the structure that's been set in place for what people consider to be legitimate, or this is actually a real paranormal investigation because this is happening, or we are doing these things, it's great to take inspiration from those who you admire and who you enjoy and who you're a fan of. And it's always about finding your own voice in something. And I think you have to do probably paranormal investigations for a little while, much like you have to do stand-up for a while before you figure out what your voice is and where you want to go with it. And I know for me specifically, there's certain things I really want to do when I'm doing a paranormal investigation that aren't the standard things that you may see on your television programs. But there are also lots of things I do in paranormal investigations that are things you would be familiar with because we're using the same tools. Sometimes we try to innovate and use different tools, but you're not going to keep using a different tool if it's not getting you any results just so you can be different. I mean, that seems silly. I mean, we're not trying to be different here. We're trying to make communication and gather evidence of that communication with the other side to show people that we can communicate with something outside of ourselves that isn't accepted as being a part of our reality. And so doing that in a unique way that makes us special, that shouldn't be important. That shouldn't be what we worry about, right? But we all have egos, I suppose. So I'm sure it affects all of us in some ways. So I like to use musical tones, and because mathematics is the universal language, and if everything in the universe is constructed and can be kind of broken down mathematically in a certain degree, like consciousness, for example, then consciousness should recognize itself. It's like holding a mirror up to itself using these, musical notes, which are based in mathematics. That's the basis of that, reasoning and that line of thinking, and using random number generators in paranormal investigations as a layer of trying to confirm evidence. Like if something creepy or something weird happens on camera and it happens at the same timestamp as your random number generator showing an anomaly in the numbers, then boom, you got something. I have a dream of a random number generator paranormal investigation app that I've been working on. It's obviously taken the back seat to all these other things I got cooking, but hopefully soon that will be something that'll be easy to use. I mean, imagine walking into an investigation and just being able to be like, hey, you have this app on your phone that you can use, and you can, specifically request certain things to be showing up for you. And if you can get those things to show up, and then, they can correlate to other things. So almost like not a cipher, but a code, and I guess like a cipher. So that to me would be very fascinating and be very interesting. And it would be a fun tool to have in the field. And you could use that anywhere. You could use that out in the woods. You could use that trying to, UFO site. You could do ghost investigations with it. It kind of, because if all of this is sharing a consciousness, which I believe everything in this universe is attached and intertwined to one another and to everything else, then that theory should play. That theory should have some legs. Does it have legs? Does that theory have legs? Let's see. A buddy of mine, Greg Nichols, who's been on the show a few times, he actually made me a random number generator program I can use. Right now, it's something I can only use on my computer. So that's a little bit of a lug carrying a laptop around when you're doing investigations. But so yeah, we're very excited over here at Team Me and Paranormal U, because we've got a bunch of footage coming our way in a few weeks. We've got this other documentary we're working on. We got some great interviews lined up. Lots of fun stuff on the agenda. And I've been thinking a lot about death. And, maybe, you get a little bit older. I mean, you can see there's gray in my beard. You start thinking about death more. And then my buddy Michael Malone's book, one of the main themes throughout the book is dealing with death and specifically grief. And that's an interesting angle when it comes to the paranormal. How often are we considering attached grief that goes along with whatever it is we're trying to contact? And I know some people do a pretty good job of it. But it's not always in the forefront of my mind. I know that. It's not always in the front of the brain cloud when I'm doing an investigation to think about, okay, what grief may be attached here, and what grief what grief may have, what cloud collective grief may have collected here, may have settled here. And is it possible that you're only communicating with grief? Excuse me, I haven't coughed all day. It's this microphone. Excuse me. Is it possible that we're communicating with grief? That's wild to think about. That is really wild. This isn't something I even thought about up until this moment. But if you're only communicating with the grief aspect of the energy of the entity, etc., that is there, because it is common to, you hear the story a lot, like, why is a place haunted? Something bad happened here, and like burned or anchored that spirit, that person's soul, that person's energy, whatever, has been anchored, attached here because of something horrific. Now, that's been played out a bunch in horror films. Whether or not there's actual evidence of that to be true, who knows? A good example of that would be this. Poasttown Elementary School has a famous stairwell in the building. For a child ghost named Sarah who fell down those stairs. She later died, not in the school, but that fall led to her death. Maybe a few days later. I don't know exactly how long later. But now that girl is purported to be contacted there and make contact with investigators somewhat regularly. So that act, that trauma, that grief that goes along with her death, brings her back to the place that was the origin of such a thing. I don't know if that makes any sense, even as I say it out loud. So, forgive me if I do, forgive me if I don't. I don't know why you'd forgive me if I do or don't. It doesn't make, that's so interesting. It's just fun to, forgive me if I do, forgive me if I don't. It's just fun to say that. Forgive me if I do, forgive me if I don't. It's just enjoyable. You should try it before you judge. So, I don't know what happens after death. I just know I do want to live a life worth haunting, for sure. I want to live an exciting life that has, that's worthy of being a haunting. I mean, I want to have a ghost that's worthy of being I want to have a life that's worthy of being a ghost later, That doesn't mean I want to die tragically or die in a lot of pain or something like that, but it would be funny to be so peculiar in the haunting. Because I love milkshakes so much, it would be funny to really send off people's blenders all the time. You know what I mean? Making milkshakes. It'd be funny if straws always kind of show. I don't like straws, so we need to get rid of straws. Get those reusable straws. Something like that. That'd be fun. And I am compiling a list of envelopes. You have to make sure you do it not too long before you die, though, because I'm making like these little notes for people that'll be sealed to be delivered to them upon my death. And I haven't actually sealed any of the envelopes or really gone through with the follow through on this, but I have ideas of who and what I'm going to be doing. But it's because it's you write something in an envelope that you're going to do specifically so that person knows that your ghost is trying to contact them, right? This isn't a new concept. This has been tried in the past. And so they open that after your death, and then they're like, okay, if Ryan is telling me while he's alive, if I start experiencing these things or hearing these things, that means that's him trying to communicate with me. So the trick is being able to not forget what you've written on those pieces of paper before you die. Because, I got 30 envelopes with a bunch of things I'm going to be doing individually to each different person so they know specifically it's me. And it's not going to be the same thing for every person, you know what I mean? It's let's diversify your haunting a little bit. And so now I'm just going to forget. And so now I live another 30 years after another 50 years after I've written those article or those letters. And now I forget what I tell people 3 days ago, let alone, exactly to a fine detail of how I'm going to be haunting or, making my presence known as a ghost or as a spirit. So I just want to make sure I don't forget. But I've got some ideas. Let me know if anybody else out there is doing anything like that or has, experienced anything like that, has been on the receiving end of something like that. It'd be interesting. And also, if you think that someone that would be a great guest on the program, let me know. I mostly rely on referrals at this point for or when people reach out to me. I'm also seeking out interviews, obviously, but if someone reaches out to me and wants to come on the program, I'd love to have you. If you know someone you think would be a great guest, I'd love to have them as well. I'm going to keep this one short, and we're going to go from there. And then we'll be dropping back in next week, and I'll be doing some more Patreon stuff here later this week. Although it's already Friday, so we got the Bengals game on Saturday. As a Southern Ohio boy, I'm excited for football. This is interesting. It's an interesting feeling. Although I've been excited all year, and last year and the year before. So, unabashedly do enjoy the Cincinnati Bengals football team. I mean, that makes me, that's why I'm so used to failure. I've embraced it through everything I love. Fails me. Okay. CrystalEyes app is out there. Please write a review. Give us 5 stars. And if you do that, screenshot it, send it my way, and you'll be entered to win a prize in a raffle. So it's Android and iPhone. Go do it, please. I'd love that. It would be really, really helpful. Me and my three cousins especially, they work their asses off. Everybody's got a full-time job and took so much time out of their lives for the last 2 years to work on this thing, put our blood, sweat, and tears into it, and it's finally out there, and I'm excited about it. And it's only going to keep getting better and better and more effective. So, just know that the app is going to only just keep getting better and better and better. So, and if you'd like to contribute, crystal-related content to the app, you should reach out because we're curating new content constantly. So check that out. That's on CrystalEyes, EYES, one word, Crystal, EYES. Crystals like your eyeballs, CrystalEyes, so you can see your crystals, photo identification for crystals. And thanks for listening to the program. I appreciate you. And thanks to the patrons as well. Thank you for supporting the Mindcast. Your contributions, your support goes a long way in, helping me be the creator and make the content that I make. So thank you very much. Let's keep the lights on over here. So I appreciate that. And if you've never been a patron, now there's never been a better time to sign up over at patreon.com/Ryan Singer. I believe there's 4 different tiers to choose from. So, pick your sugar over there. People always say pick your poison, but how about pick your sugar? Pick your sugar over there. So, thanks again. Tour dates are being posted. You can check my website and go to the tour section, and you can see where I'm booking shows. I'm going to be all over the Midwest and the Southeast, and then hopefully out here out west as well. So those are coming in, and then doing some investigation/comedy shows. Come to a comedy show at a place that's probably haunted, and then stay for the investigation afterwards. That's kind of in the works. So nothing specific about that available yet, but those are coming this year as well. So and who knows, and more exciting updates about the docs coming soon. I'll keep you posted when the comedy special's coming out, all that good stuff. Give a follow on TikTok at Ryan Singer Comedy. Give a follow on Instagram at RySing, Twitter RySing, Instagram me and Paranormal You. I love you. I hope you love yourself, and I look forward to seeing you soon at a live comedy show. And if I don't, I'll see you at the watering hole on the astral plane.